Hello and welcome to Hands-on IT. This is the second video in the series. Today's lab will go through step by step how to install Windows 2019 Server, and in the second part, I will get into the configuration. So the end goal is to build a virtual machine that will be converted to a domain controller. For this lab, I will use an ISO with my Windows Server installation. You can also use DVD or CD. So let's get to it. First, open your Hyper-V that we installed in the previous video. Now we want to make sure our ISO is available. I have it on my USB stick. Make sure you unlock it. Any software downloaded from the internet or any untrusted sources will be locked by default. Just right click on it and go to Properties and click Unlock. Just to avoid any surprises during the installation. This should be the first step you do. Okay, it's unlocked now. Now let's create the first virtual machine. Give it a name. The location is already set. We changed that in the first video. So all new virtual machines will be created inside those folders. Pick a generation. I'm using generation 2. Okay. Now figure out how much RAM you can give it. Check how much RAM your host machine has. Mine has 32 gigs, so 8 gigabytes. I can spare 8 gigabytes without any problems. You don't want to put too much, but you don't want to put too little. You can always change it later. Yes, I'm supposed to put 8,192. It's an iteration of 1,024, but I'm lazy, so 8,000 is fine. Everything else is fake, so what difference does it make? We're not using the actual chips. Okay, now the connection. Default switch is set up when you create a virtual machine in Hyper-V. Okay, I'm pretty stingy if it comes to storage. For Windows Server, 30, 40 gigs should be enough. No need to waste space. Yep. And now we have to connect the source, which is my ISO, with Windows 2019 Server installation. Okay, we're ready. Configuration is done. Let's connect and start the installation. Now this is an interesting situation. Pixie is set as default boot. Even though I'm getting a message at the top, press any key to boot from CD or DVD, this message is generated by Windows installer, but I have no way to get to it. I can't send a key, so in this case, just press Ctrl-Alt-Delete and hit the space bar before Pixie message is displayed, and you should be okay. Control-Delete, hit the space bar. Good. Now the files are loading. We're getting ready to install Windows. Okay, click on next, install. Now you can select um, whether this is a full installation or um, no GUI installation or basic GUI installation. Pick the standard and desktop experience if you don't want to have any extra problems later. Yep, hard disk or hard drive. Either click on new and next or just next. It will automatically create necessary disks and start the installation. I'm actually gonna fast forward through the installation. Nothing exciting. It's going from 0 to 100. But that's the actual Windows installation. Okay, this part is done. Installing updates, basic updates. The rest we will have to do. Okay, and the machine will reboot now. As promised, I'm going to keep my comments to a minimum. Okay, before I set the password, I'm going to shut down this virtual machine. Now, this is the time when you can make necessary adjustments. You can drop number of virtual processors or increase them. It's up to you. You can change how much memory is allocated. As you remember, I put 8 gigs. You can give it more, you can give it less. So in this case, I'm dropping number of virtual processors from 6 to 4. I'm leaving my memory alone, and I want to remove my ISO. The last thing I want is to Windows installer to kick in every time I restart the computer, the virtual machine. Okay, that's done. Now we're going to start the virtual machine one more time, and that will be the end of part 1. Simple, right? Next part is the configuration. So let's start the virtual machine. Okay, you can go back to automatic checkpoint, or you can continue. Just always read what's on the screen. There's a reason why things are displayed on the screen. Continue. Now pay attention doing configuration. There's not a lot to do, but these things need to be done to make sure you're not going to have any problems later. Okay. Set the password. That's the first thing you do. Later on, I'm going to get into security, password complexity requirements, etc., etc. But for now, it's just a lab environment. So any password will do as long as you remember. Log in. Yep, looks like our network just kicked in. Looks like we are connected. It says we have internet access. My home Wi-Fi, my home Wi-Fi router, by default, it gives the IP addresses from subnet 192.168.1. By default, the name of the computer is strange. So probably the first thing you should do is just rename it, because I'm going to have two domain controllers, server A and server B. It's my natural choice. Let's look at the activation. Activate Windows in the production environment. Lab doesn't matter. But for production environment, just make sure you activate, because you may not be able to pull Windows updates. Okay, it looks like there's an issue with connectivity. That's strange because I'm connected. All right, let's try the updates. Yep, looks like we also having problems. So you might want to pause at this point and ask yourself this question: why? What could be the reason? I'm connected, but I'm not getting online. And the answer is the switch, virtual switch. That's in the first part. I mentioned that we're going to set up our switch in the second part. Okay, this is not my IP address, not the one given away by my home router. So we need to create a new switch and make sure the switch is bridged to my home Wi-Fi. Only then I'll be able to access the internet. Okay, so to do that, click on the switch, virtual switch, and you need to select external, not internal, not private, external. Create a new switch, put a little description if you want. I'm going to call it bridged to home Wi-Fi. Make sure external network is selected. If you have multiple adapters, network adapters, they'll be listed in this dropdown. I only have one. Yeah, the checkbox for this allow management doesn't matter. This is a standard message warning you that you're going to lose connection. So if you work remotely, take it into consideration. Let the changes apply. And now creating a virtual switch is only half the job you have to do. You have to assign the new switch to your NIC of the NIC of your virtual machine. Okay, that's created. Let's assign it now. Change from default switch to bridge to home Wi-Fi. That happens sometimes. Just be patient. Click on wait and do what you have to do. Okay, now I'm going to start the virtual machine one more time. Okay, lock back in. All right, let's check our IP assignment, IP config. Okay, that's my home IP subnet. So it looks like it's pulling IP directly from the home router, as it should be. Let's see more details by adding /all. Look at the DHCP and the default gateway. Both have the IP of my router. That's good. Next, you should change it from public to private because you trust this network. You know which network this thing is connected to. Yep, go to private. This is important for later for security when you deal with firewall. Yes, now because it's going to be a domain controller. Domain controllers should have static IP. They should not use DHCP. So I'm giving this thing 1.199. For your lab, make sure no other machine has 199 if you want to use the same IP. Otherwise, you're going to have a conflict and it's just not going to work. I'm listing the same IP on the DNS because this machine will be DNS server eventually. I'm just saving myself extra work later. You can also use 127.0.01, which is called local loop or just local host. Essentially the same thing. Okay, that is done. Okay, we're flashing DNS. I'm going to try to ping Yahoo to see if it's able to resolve IP address. Looks good. And let's look up. Okay, we'll see what is doing the translation. Okay. We're not on the domain yet, so it's kind of meaningless at this point. Okay, we're almost done. I changed my name, my server name. We're going to look at the updates. Try to pull down updates as much as possible. Ideally, download all available updates. Microsoft recommends getting all critical updates at least. From my experience, putting updates early on the system saves you a lot of time. It will get in the way sooner or later. If you want to install something, a feature, package, application, it will just complain. Okay, I need this, I need that. .NET is a good example, and that's pretty much it. Um, just make sure you look at Device Manager and see if there are any missing drivers. Install them. For Hyper-V, it's almost never an issue. And you also make sure you have enough storage. Looks like we have enough for now. We can always expand. That's about it. You have a machine fully configured, ready for domain controller installation. Just remember to update, make sure you have full updates, make sure you have static IP, make sure you have DNS set to itself and the secondary DNS to whatever you're using to get online. And also remember about the name. And that's about it. This is pretty simple. I hope you had a good time. And we'll continue in the next video. Have a good day.